kings and queens, and welcome to another week with Asian Queen. So this week we are diving into the topic of privileges. I already mentioned privileges when I did my video on pretty privilege, and I mentioned that there are 4 privileges that dominate the world: white privilege, male privilege, money privilege, and pretty privilege. Then I mentioned that in Nigeria we have 3 privileges dominating, since Nigeria is an African country, so there aren't many whites around. So the ones that dominate are mostly male privilege, money privilege, and pretty privilege. I mentioned that male privilege is absolute. So when you are born a man, you are already privileged. So there isn't anything that actually separates a man from another man, unless of course one is rich and the other is not. Which is why most Nigerian men will dedicate their entire life to accumulating wealth so that they can be able to use their money to dominate over other men. Pretty privilege is more of a feminine privilege. Well, because when you are born a woman, you are automatically disadvantaged. So it doesn't really matter how rich or how educated, or perhaps it matters if you're white, then in that case, yeah, you can get something. But usually when you are born as a woman in Nigeria, you are absolutely at a disadvantage. So you just have to hope that you are pretty so you can exchange your pretty privilege with money. Today we are using as our case study Regina Daniels and her husband Nwoko. So rumors broke out last year that Regina Daniels and Ned were married, and of course I didn't believe it because she is so young and he is so old. Personally, to me, it doesn't matter how rich a man is. There are certain criteria that if he doesn't meet, no amount of money can ever do it for me. So of course there's something called a projection, where you think that just because you can't do something, someone else cannot do it. It came absurd to me that a young woman of just 20 years or 21, I don't really know her age, there's so much speculation about that, would opt to get married to a man of 59 or 61. Again, the age is not something that we are sure of, just because he is a billionaire. But they will later confirm that indeed that they were married. And here we are. Regina Daniels is an actress, and we know that, well, in the Nigerian movie industry, it's not that there is a lot of money to be made. But she was not doing bad for herself, and there were chances for her to, grow into a financially powerful woman. Which is why I struggled at the beginning to accept these rumors that she was, entangled with a man old enough to be her grandfather. But it turned out to be true. Usually in a relationship like this, when you have like a much younger woman dating a much older man, or a very attractive young woman dating a not so attractive man, it is usually the better looking party that dictates the relationship. Like when someone has a privilege, they can use it as a leverage for many other things in the relationship. And if you noticed, it is usually the good looking one that tries to justify or give reasons as to why they are dating their not so good looking partner. They might talk about how he is funny, or he gives me peace of mind, or he takes good care of me, or he is attentive. But let's be honest, if Ned was not so rich and not so wealthy, would Regina Daniels even care about how funny, how caring, how attentive he is? So this justification just comes from a place of, I understand that this relationship is awkward for many reasons, and I feel that I need to explain myself because I myself feel awkward in this relationship. But one thing about relationships like this, where the man is extremely rich, is that it doesn't matter how pretty the woman is. You have to understand that beauty is seen as a commodity. So it can be exchanged, it can be bought, it can be sold. So if a man is a billionaire, how much beauty can he buy? He can buy as much as his money allows. Regina Daniels is not his first wife. She's like the 5th or the 6th. The rumors are plenty, but she is definitely not the first wife. There have been like 4 or 5 other beautiful women who exchanged their beauty for Ned's money. This means that pretty privilege only matters as long as the other person is not rich. Now, in the relationship between a woman and a man, pretty privilege can be used to, buy some of the man's money. In the relationship between a rich woman and a pretty boy, the situation is a little bit more complicated, and I will dive into that subsequently in another topic. Today we are focusing on a relationship between a beautiful woman and a rich man. Okay, so what happens is that when the man is rich and the woman is pretty, his richness or his wealth trumps her pretty. Because let's be honest, Regina Daniels is a pretty woman, but there are millions of pretty women in Nigeria. Beauty abounds. But how many men are billionaires in Nigeria? Let's say Regina Daniels is in the 70 percentile, but Ned is in the 0.1% percentile. He is rare. She is common. Like, you can walk on the streets of Nigeria and you will see many women that are as pretty or prettier than Regina Daniels. But how many times do you come across a billionaire like Ned? Which means that Ned is the one that dictates the tune of their relationship. When Regina Daniels got married, she had to go through a ritual that binds her to him. She cannot have extramarital affairs while she is married to him. And if she decides to divorce, she will have to go through another ritual to cleanse herself of Ned's essence. Regina Daniels and Ned just got married, so everything is still rosy and everything is still good. But when women get married to men who are extremely richer than them, they encounter a lot of problems and issues. And that is what we are going to be diving into in our next video. But before I leave, I would like to ask you a question. Would you marry a man just because he is extremely rich? And that is all for today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.